My mother slid a debit card across the restaurant table between the champagne glasses. My sister's name was printed beneath mine. "Don't look like that, Claire," Mom said. "It's only access. Megan needs to know the family has her back." I stared at the card, then at my sister, then at the folder beside my father's plate. $214,760. 17 years of overtime, delayed vacations, second-hand cars, automatic deposits, and every bonus I had refused to spend. And somehow, during the 10 days I had been out of town for work, my family had moved nearly all of it into an account my sister could touch. Everyone at the table seemed to be waiting for me to smile. I did, because before dessert arrived, I already knew exactly what I was going to do next. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 41 years old and I worked as a regional procurement manager for a medical supply distributor outside Raleigh. My job was not glamorous. I negotiated contracts, caught expensive mistakes before they became expensive disasters, and spent most of my days asking one question: who authorized this? That question had saved my company hundreds of thousands of dollars. Eventually, it saved me too. Welcome back to Closest Strangers. Stories of family betrayal, quiet justice, and the people who were supposed to love you. If you've ever been the responsible one, the ATM, the fixer, the strong one, this story is for you. I had been the responsible one in my family for so long that nobody remembered when it started, including me. My younger sister Megan was 4 years behind me and seemed to arrive in the world already protected from consequences. When she was 6 and broke a neighbor's window with a softball, Dad paid for it before the neighbor even asked. When she was 14 and lost an expensive school calculator, Mom said she was overwhelmed. When she was 17 and backed Dad's car into the garage door, everybody laughed. When I was 17 and came home 20 minutes after curfew because the bus had been delayed, I lost my weekend. That was our family architecture. I was proof that parenting worked. Megan was proof that love was unconditional. It took me years to understand how different those roles were. My parents, Elaine and Robert Bennett, were not monsters. That is important. If they had been cruel every day, leaving would have been easy. Dad coached our softball team when we were kids. Mom drove 3 hours to help me move into my first apartment. There were Christmas mornings with matching pajamas, beach vacations in Myrtle Beach, Sunday pot roast, jokes nobody outside our family understood. There was love. There was also a hierarchy. And love arranged inside a hierarchy can become something strange. By 23, I had learned to save money because watching my parents manage it terrified me. They were not poor. Dad supervised maintenance for a manufacturing plant. Mom worked in the administrative office of a dental practice. They earned enough. They simply treated every good month as proof that another good month was guaranteed. New patio furniture, cruise deposits, kitchen upgrades, cars traded before they were paid off, store cards, holiday spending, then panic when property taxes arrived. My mother had a phrase for money sitting untouched. Money should be doing something. Usually what she meant was that money should be doing something for whoever was asking. I opened my first serious savings account at 24. The account itself had technically existed since I was 17. Mom had opened it with me at North River Community Bank when I got my first summer job, which meant her name had remained attached to that old account structure long after I became an adult. For years, it barely mattered. There was rarely more than $3,000 or $4,000 there. Then my habits changed. At 24, I took a buyer assistant position paying $42,500. I lived with a roommate and saved $350 a month. At 27, I became a purchasing specialist and increased it to $600. At 30, I got promoted again and started putting away $900, then $1,200, then bonuses, then tax refunds, then part of every raise. I called the account my Freedom Fund. Nobody else did. My family called it Claire's Vault. They laughed about it. At Thanksgiving, Megan would ask, "How many millions are in the vault now?" Mom would say, "Don't ask her, she'll make us sign an NDA." Dad would grin. I laughed too. That is another thing I have learned. People can test your boundaries for years using jokes. If you keep laughing, one day they start treating the joke like permission. By 31, I had $61,400. By 35, $118,000. Then life became more expensive for everyone except me. Megan got married at 28. The wedding cost $34,000. My parents covered $19,000. Her husband, Tyler, contributed some. I gave Megan $2,500 as a wedding gift because I loved her and because at the time, I still believed generosity was something people remembered accurately. Their marriage lasted 3 years. The debt lasted longer. After the divorce, Megan moved into a townhouse she could barely afford because she insisted moving back with our parents would feel like going backward. Her monthly rent was $2,150. Her salary as an account coordinator was around $58,000. The math did not work. Everyone knew it. Nobody said it. Instead, the family developed a system. Mom paid her phone bill. Dad covered her car insurance. I became emergencies. The first emergency was $1,800 because Megan's checking account had gone negative after her divorce attorney deposited a final invoice. The second was $3,200 because she needed a new transmission. Then $950 for a dental bill. Then $1,600 because her landlord required 2 months of rent after a payment issue. Every request came wrapped in dignity. Not give Megan money. Never that. It was, can you help her get through this month? Could you float her until her bonus? She's had a terrible year. You know she'd help you if things were reversed. I did not know that, but I wanted to believe it. Between age 29 and 37, I gave or loaned my sister $18,460. I know because I kept a ledger, not because I was planning revenge, because I am who I am. The ledger was a small red notebook my grandmother had given me when I graduated college. She had written inside the cover, "Know where your money went. Otherwise, somebody else will tell you." My grandmother had raised 4 children on a postal worker's income and possessed no patience for financial mythology. I wrote every major family expense in that book: date, amount, purpose, whether it was repaid. Most were not. The strange thing was, my family mocked the notebook more than they questioned the money. "Claire's writing us up again," Megan would say. Mom once tapped the red cover and laughed. "You keep score like we're a corporation." I answered, "No. Corporations reimburse expenses." Nobody laughed at that one. Dad did pay me back sometimes. That distinction mattered later. When my parents needed $4,700 after their air conditioning system died one July, Dad repaid me $500 a month until the balance was gone. When Mom needed $1,100 after a dental insurance problem, she repaid half, then forgot the rest. Megan repaid almost nothing. But somehow, within the family story, I was the one obsessed with money. At 38, my savings crossed $170,000. That same year, something happened that should have made me fix the old account structure. My bank called during a routine profile review. The representative asked whether I still intended Elaine Bennett to remain a joint owner on my oldest savings account. I remember sitting at my desk staring at my monitor. Mom's name had been there so long it had become invisible to me. The representative explained that the account had been opened when I was younger and still reflected both of us. I said I would come in and update it. Then work got busy. Dad had knee surgery. Megan went through another job change. I forgot. I would think about that forgotten errand hundreds of times later. Not because forgetting made what happened my fault, because small administrative loose ends become enormous when entitlement finds them. The seed of what protected me came 18 months before the restaurant dinner. Our company had gone through an internal audit after one of our regional offices approved more than $300,000 in purchases without proper vendor documentation. It was not fraud, just carelessness. But the investigation was brutal. Every authorization, every email, every amendment, every date. I watched a senior manager lose his job not because he had stolen anything, but because he could not prove what he had approved. After that, I became obsessive about documentation. I downloaded quarterly saving statements. I archived deposit records. I kept copies of my bonus statements. I created a spreadsheet matching large deposits to salary, bonuses, investment redemptions, or reimbursements. I also finally opened a separate emergency checking account at another institution in my name only. I did not move the Freedom Fund. Again, inertia. But I created a clean financial paper trail without knowing how badly I would need it. Then Megan decided she wanted to buy a house, not someday, immediately. She was 37 then and had been dating a contractor named Evan for about 9 months. Evan already owned a condo. Megan hated it. She called it a bachelor box. What she wanted was a 4-bedroom house in a development called Briar Glen, with a covered patio, double garage, quartz kitchen, and a price tag of $468,000. I heard about the house at our parents' anniversary dinner. Megan passed her phone around the table, showing listing photos. "Look at the kitchen." Mom gasped. Dad whistled. I asked the only question that mattered. "Can you afford it?" The table changed. Megan lowered the phone. "Wow." "What?" "Could you just be happy for me before becoming the finance police?" "You said you want to buy it. I asked if you can afford it." Mom gave me the look she used when she wanted me to smooth something over. "Claire." I put down my fork. Megan sighed. "Evan and I are figuring it out." Which meant no. 3 weeks later, Mom called me. Not Megan. Mom. "Your sister needs $25,000. I almost laughed because the number was so clean. "For what?" "Down payment support." "That isn't $25,000 worth of explanation." She exhaled sharply. "She needs to show stronger funds. Evan is contributing too." "Is she asking for a gift or a loan?" "Why does everything have to be contractual with you?" "Because $25,000 is contractual whether we use the word or not." Silence. Then Mom used the family line. "Claire, money should be doing something." "It is." "What?" "Protecting my future." I could hear the offense in her breathing. "You don't even have children." There are sentences that expose more than the speaker intended. I stayed quiet. She rushed to soften it. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did. I meant your situation is different. Megan is trying to build a family." "So am I supposed to fund it because mine looks different?" "You know that isn't what I'm saying." It was exactly what she was saying. I told her no, not angrily, no speech, no accusation, just no. For the next month, Megan barely spoke to me. Then, strangely, she became nice. Too nice. She sent me photos of a dress she thought would look good on me. She invited me to brunch. She asked about my work presentation. Mom did the same. The house conversation disappeared. I should have noticed. Instead, I felt relieved. When people have trained you to expect conflict after boundaries, unexpected peace can look like maturity. Sometimes it is preparation. 3 months later, Dad called. He sounded embarrassed. "Your mother wants us all to sit down." "About?" "Megan." "No." He chuckled weakly. "You don't even know what I was going to say." "I know enough." "Claire, please, she's struggling." "She's always struggling after she decides what she wants." "That doesn't mean we stop being family." I closed my laptop. My father had always been the easiest person in the family for me to forgive because he rarely demanded directly. He carried demands for other people. That made him seem kinder. It also made him useful to them. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Maybe just help us find a solution." "What solution?" "A way Megan can use some of the family resources without everyone feeling uncomfortable." I remember the phrase precisely. Family resources. My money had changed categories. "That savings is not a family resource." "I know that." "Do you?" Dad went quiet, and then he said, "Your mother worries that one day something happens to you and nobody can access anything." I actually laughed. "Now we're estate planning?" "I'm just telling you what she said." "Dad, if Mom wants to discuss what happens when I die, she can wait until after I'm dead." "Claire." "No, this is ridiculous." We ended the call without resolution. That night, I took the red notebook from my desk drawer. I added one sentence beneath the latest entry. June 14th. Mom/Dad now referring to Freedom Fund as Family Resources. I underlined it once. 6 months passed. Megan did not buy the Briar Glen house. Evan ended their relationship 2 weeks after they failed to get financing together. Megan's version was that he had misled her about his willingness to commit. His version, according to Dad, was that he had no intention of combining finances after discovering her credit card balances. Nobody told me the exact number. I did not ask. Then Megan lost her job. That part was not her fault. Her company restructured. She received severance equal to 6 weeks of pay. Mom immediately began using the phrase, family crisis. By then I had been promoted again. My salary was $132,000. My savings balance had reached $214,760. I was planning something I had told nobody. A house, not Briar Glen, nothing dramatic. A small craftsman-style home outside the city with a screened porch and enough yard for a garden. I had been looking for almost 2 years. My goal was to put down enough cash that my monthly payment would remain comfortable, even if my job changed. That money was not idle. It represented options. I could survive a layoff, care for myself if I became ill, move, buy a home, walk away from a bad job, help someone because I chose to, not because I was trapped. Money had been doing something all along. It had been buying me the ability to say no. In October, my company sent me to Denver for 10 days to negotiate a supplier renewal. On the second morning, while I was walking through the hotel lobby, I got an automated alert from North River Community Bank. Account profile updated. I glanced at it. The bank had been upgrading its online platform, and I assumed it was administrative. I logged in. My savings account was still there. Balance unchanged. Nothing looked wrong. I went to work. 2 days later, I received another notification. New card requested. That got my attention. Savings accounts do not usually need the sort of card I associated with daily spending, but my old account had access features attached to it because of the way it had been opened. I called Mom. Did you request something on the savings account? There was a pause too small for most people to notice. I noticed. Oh, that. What is that? I was going to explain when you got home. My body went cold before my brain knew why. Explain what? We reorganized the old account. We? Your father and I spoke with someone at the branch. Megan is going through a difficult season, Claire. We thought it made sense to create a family reserve structure. I stopped walking. I was standing beside an artificial fireplace in a Denver hotel, while my mother calmly described rearranging the most important financial account of my life. What did you do? Nothing happened to your money. My money? Claire, please don't start. What did you do? She sighed. We moved the balance into a new account configuration so Megan can access emergency funds if necessary. Your name is still there. Mine is there. Hers is there. Nobody took anything. For a few seconds, I could hear only the lobby music. Megan can withdraw money? Emergency money. That was not my question. You're making this sound ugly. Can Megan withdraw money? Yes. I closed my eyes. How much? What do you mean? How much access does she have? Well, technically the same access any account holder. I hung up, not because I was emotional, because I needed information before conversation. I called the bank. The representative would not discuss everything over the phone until I completed additional verification. I verified, then asked one question at a time. A transfer had been made from the old joint account into a newly opened joint deposit account. The amount transferred was $212,480. A smaller amount had remained behind for pending interest and account activity. The new owners listed were Elaine Bennett, Claire Bennett, and Megan Bennett. I asked when it happened. 3 days earlier. I asked whose authorization initiated the transfer. Elaine Bennett, my mother. Because she remained a joint owner on the original account, the bank had treated her as authorized to transact under the account agreement. I asked whether funds had been withdrawn yet. The representative said she could not guarantee real-time information beyond what I could see, but current activity showed no completed outbound withdrawal other than the transfer into the newly structured account. I opened the app. There it was, a new account, 3 names. My 17 years of savings had become a family project. I asked the bank representative to note that I disputed the arrangement and wanted an in-person review immediately when I returned. She documented the call. Then I called my accountant, Ruth Delgado. Ruth had prepared my taxes for 11 years. She was 59, practical, unsentimental, and one of the few people in my life who never confused being calm with being available. I told her what happened. She did not gasp. She asked numbers. How much money originated from you? Essentially, all of it. Can you document that? Yes. How much came from your mother? Possibly some deposits when I was a teenager, maybe a few $100s. Nothing meaningful after my early 20s. Do you have statements? 11 years, digitally. Older ones may be archived. Payroll records? Yes. Contribution spreadsheet? Yes. Good. What should I do? She paused. I'm not giving you legal advice, Claire, but I am giving you accountant advice. Stop arguing with your family and preserve every record you have. That sentence steadied me. I downloaded everything, every statement available online, every transaction history, every profile change notification, screenshots showing the new account names, copies of my pay records, bonus statements, tax refunds, transfers from my brokerage account. The red notebook was at home, but the spreadsheet was in cloud storage. By midnight, I had a folder showing more than $198,000 of traceable deposits connected directly to my earnings and accounts. The rest could be reconstructed later. I barely slept. The next morning, Mom sent a text. Please don't make a mountain out of this before we can explain. Nobody stole from you. Then Megan. Mom told me you're upset. I haven't touched a cent. I don't even know why you're freaking out. Then Dad. Let's talk when you get home. Your money is safe. 3 people. Same message. Your money is safe. What they meant was, your money is still there. Therefore, you are not allowed to object to who can reach it. I replied to none of them. At work, I negotiated a 3-year contract renewal worth $8.6 million. I remember that because the absurdity almost made me laugh. Across a conference table, men with legal teams and financial analysts respected the meaning of authorization more than my own mother did. I finished the trip. I did not fly home early. That surprised my family later. They expected panic, but panic would have taught them I was reactive. I wanted to be exact. During those remaining days, I ordered archived statements from the bank. I asked Ruth to prepare a contribution summary. I found the old email from 3 years earlier when the bank had reminded me Mom still shared ownership. I hated reading that one. Not because it weakened my position, because it reminded me of the mistake I had postponed. Still, responsibility and permission are not the same thing. I could admit I had left a door unlocked. That did not mean I invited someone to rearrange the furniture. When I landed home Friday afternoon, Dad texted me, Dinner Sunday, 5:30 at Bellamy's, your mother's birthday. Please come. Let's keep things pleasant. Bellamy's was Mom's favorite restaurant. Private dining room, white tablecloths, overpriced steaks. I almost declined. Then Megan sent, Mom really wants everyone together. Please don't turn her birthday into bank drama. That told me everything I needed to know. They planned to talk about the account. They wanted witnesses. And they had already decided that if I objected publicly, I would be the one creating the scene. So I went. 12 people were there. My parents, Megan, Aunt Diane, Uncle Mark, 2 cousins, Mom's closest friend, Susan, and her husband, 3 people from Dad's side. A birthday dinner had somehow become a family summit. Mom wore burgundy. Megan sat beside her. There were balloons behind the chair and a cake waiting on a side table. For the first hour, nobody mentioned money. That was almost impressive. We ate appetizers. Mom opened gifts. Dad gave a toast about 42 years of marriage. Megan told a funny story about Mom getting lost on vacation. Then dessert plates were cleared. Dad looked at Mom looked at Megan. And Megan reached beneath her chair. She brought out a cream-colored folder. My stomach tightened. "Before we finish," Mom said, "there's one family thing I think it would be healthy to clear up." Aunt Diane looked confused. I said nothing. Mom gave me the soft smile she used before calling me unreasonable. Claire came home from her trip worried because we made a small adjustment to an old family savings arrangement. There it was again. Family savings. I leaned back. Megan opened the folder. Inside were printed account materials and 2 debit cards. She removed one and slid it across the table. "See," she said lightly, "nobody did anything behind your back. Your name is right there." I looked down. Claire Bennett. Then she held up the second card. Megan Bennett. Mom thought it would make sense if I could help manage emergencies while in between jobs. Aunt Diane stared at the cards. "So that's Claire's savings?" she asked. Mom answered quickly. "It's always been an account I was on, too." Not the question. I noticed Dad staring at his plate. That mattered. Mom continued. "We're not talking about spending Claire's money. We're talking about family security. Megan may need temporary help. Dad and I are getting older, and Claire travels. It makes sense for more than one responsible person to have access." I looked at Megan. "Responsible person?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't!" I almost smiled. "Don't what?" "Do the superior thing." Mom raised a hand. "This is exactly why we wanted to talk calmly." Then she said the sentence she had been using my entire adult life. "Money should be doing something, Claire." I looked around the table. There were people there who knew I had helped Megan, people who knew I had helped my parents, people who knew I worked more hours than anyone else in the family, but not one person had known the actual balance until Megan said it. I mean, nobody needs $200,000 just sitting there. The room changed. Mom's eyes snapped toward her. Too late. Aunt Diane blinked. Uncle Mark stopped cutting his cake. Dad closed his eyes. Megan realized she had just announced my finances to 12 people. Then, instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "You know what I mean." I looked at Mom. "How does Megan know the balance?" "She's on the account now," Mom said, "so she can see it." "Yes, she can transfer it. If there were an emergency, she can withdraw it." Mom's voice sharpened. "Claire, we are not doing an interrogation." I picked up the card with my name on it. The plastic felt absurdly light. 17 years reduced to something that could fit in a wallet. I put it back on the table. Then I asked Dad, "Did you know Mom was moving the money before she did it?" He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his napkin. "I knew she was trying to make things easier." "That isn't what I asked." He looked at me. "Yes." That hurt more than Mom. Maybe because with Mom, I had already understood the shape of the problem. Dad had always stood one step away from it and called that neutrality. "You knew Megan would be added." "Yes." "And you thought I agreed?" Silence. Mom interrupted. "We knew you wouldn't agree because you overreact to anything involving money." There are moments when betrayal stops being confusing. That was mine. They had not misunderstood. They had not assumed. They knew I would say no, so they arranged things in a way they believed made my no irrelevant. Aunt Diane spoke softly. "Elaine, if you knew Claire wouldn't agree, why did you do it?" My mother looked offended by the question. Because sometimes family has to make decisions bigger than one person's anxiety. One person's anxiety. I almost admired the efficiency. My boundaries had been converted into a diagnosis. My sister reached for my hand. I moved mine away. "Claire," she said, "I swear I haven't spent anything." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "Access." She frowned. "If I'm not using it, why does access matter?" I looked at her for several seconds. "Give me the keys to your car." "What?" "Your car. Give me the keys." "That's ridiculous." I'm not going to drive it. Then why do you need the keys? Exactly. Nobody said anything. Megan sat back. Mom exhaled. Oh, for heaven's sake. Then Uncle Mark asked the question nobody else had asked. Claire, how much of that money did you actually put in? I opened my handbag. That was the moment the room shifted. I removed a slim black folder, not the red notebook. That came later. Inside was Ruth's summary. I had not planned to show anyone unless necessary. Apparently, it was necessary. I placed one page on the table. From records currently available, at least $198,412 is directly traceable to my salary, bonuses, tax refunds, and transfers from my other accounts. Mom stared at the page. Megan's face changed. I continued. The remaining amount includes older deposits I'm still documenting. Mom may have contributed a few $100s when I was a teenager. That's it. Dad whispered, Claire, nobody said the money wasn't yours. I looked at him. Then why does Megan have a card? No answer. That was the first major reveal. Not that they had accessed the account. I already knew that. The reveal was that they had no alternative story once the numbers were visible. Before documentation, Mom could say family savings. After documentation, there was a page showing nearly $200,000 tied to one person. Me. If you've ever been the person who had to produce receipts before your own family would respect reality, tell me in the comments what finally made you stop explaining. Were you the ATM, the fixer, the one expected to lend, host, rescue, or forgive? And if you've ever learned that family money somehow means your money and everyone else's decisions, subscribe. You're not the only one who has seen that equation. Mom pushed the paper back toward me. This is exactly what I mean. You come prepared to prosecute your own family. No, I said. I came prepared to describe my own money. Megan laughed once, a sharp, disbelieving sound. You know what? Fine. Take my card. I don't care. She slid it toward me. Mom grabbed it before it reached my side. No. Everyone looked at her. Mom held the card. This is not about Claire winning. That word, winning. Until then, I had not thought of the situation as a contest. Apparently, she had. This is about making sure one person cannot hold the entire family hostage financially. Aunt Diane stared at her. Elaine, how is Claire holding anybody hostage with her savings? Mom's face flushed. You don't understand the history. I understand enough. That was the first person in the room to say it plainly. My mother's expression hardened. Megan started crying, not dramatically. Real tears, which made everything harder because I loved her. That is the part people leave out of revenge stories. You can be furious with someone and still remember braiding her hair before school. You can watch your sister participate in violating a boundary and still know which movie she watched every day when she was 9. You can love somebody who has become dangerous to your peace. Megan wiped her cheek. You always make me feel like a failure. I looked at her. I didn't put your name on my savings. No, but you make everything about how responsible you are and how irresponsible I am. I have never asked you to live like me. You don't have to. Everybody compares us. Mom reached for her. There. That's what Claire never understands. And suddenly, the account was no longer about access. It was about Megan's feelings. My savings were evidence of a personality defect because their existence made somebody else uncomfortable. I stood. Dad looked alarmed. Claire, sit down. No. Mom's mouth tightened. Please do not ruin my birthday. I picked up my handbag. I'm not going to. What are you doing? Leaving. Megan laughed through tears. Of course. Walk away. I turned back. For 1 second, I wanted to deliver the speech. Every loan, every rescue, every unpaid dollar, every double standard. But speeches are for people who still believe the other side lacks information. They knew. So I only said, you wanted joint access. You have it tonight. Mom frowned. What does that mean? It means enjoy your cake. I left. At home, I pulled the red notebook from my desk. I sat at the kitchen table until almost midnight, reading 17 years of family history in my own handwriting. March 2009, Megan rent shortfall, $700. August 2010, mom dental balance, $550, not repaid. June 2012, Megan car repair, $1,900. October 2014, Megan wedding hotel overage, $1,240. February 2017, Megan divorce attorney, $1,800. May 2019, parents, AC repair, $4,700, repaid in full by dad. January 2021, Megan rent, $1,600. September 2022, Megan insurance lapse, $980. April 2024, mom vacation deposit, temporary, $1,250 unpaid. Then the final note. October 18th, $212,480 moved into joint access account with Megan without my consent. I stared at that line. Underneath it, I wrote, "Family says access does not matter unless money is spent." Then I closed the notebook. Monday morning, 8:07 a.m., I was sitting inside North River Community Bank before the branch manager finished his first coffee. His name was Leonard Price. Late 50s, gray tie, careful voice. He'd already read the notes from my earlier call. I brought identification, statements, the account paperwork I had been given, Ruth's summary, and a written timeline. I did not accuse anyone of theft. Nothing had been taken yet. I did not threaten the bank. I did not scream. I asked questions. What authority does each owner currently have? He answered. What changes can be made by one owner? He explained. What restrictions can I request on future activity? He explained the options available under that particular account and told me which requests would require all owners and which would not. What happens if one joint owner withdraws funds? He chose his words carefully. Generally, the bank follows the ownership agreement on file, but your circumstances involve questions beyond what I can resolve here. I can document your dispute and escalate it. I nodded, then asked the most important question. Is there anything preventing me as a listed owner from moving funds that belong to me into an account in my name? Leonard looked at me for a moment. Then he reviewed the account again. I can't advise you on ownership disputes among family members, he said, but under the current account authority, each listed owner has transactional access. There it was. The rule Mom had wanted. Joint access. She simply had not imagined me using it. I told Leonard I wanted to move my documented funds out. Not cash. Not a dramatic stack of currency. A controlled transfer into accounts held solely in my name. Because the amount was large and the new account arrangement was recent, the bank applied review procedures. I expected that, and I had documentation. By 11:40 a.m., the first transfer was initiated, $150,000. The remainder required additional processing and verification. I left $62,480 in the joint account temporarily. Not because I intended to give it away, because I wanted the movement clean, recorded, and completed according to bank procedure. I also moved the small remaining balance from the original legacy savings account into my new sole account. Then I waited. At 1:16 p.m., Mom called. I let it ring. Again. Megan texted. What did you do? Then the balance changed. Then, Claire, call me now. I took screenshots. At 1:32 p.m., Mom texted, You had no right to move family money without discussing it. I read that sentence 4 times. No right to move family money without discussing it. 24 hours earlier, she had defended moving my savings without discussing it because joint access made it possible. The quote had become a weapon all by itself. I replied with one sentence. I thought joint access meant any account holder could act. Then I silenced my phone. At 3 p.m., Dad appeared at my office. Reception called upstairs. Your father is here. I almost told them to send him away. Instead, I met him in the lobby. He looked 10 years older than he had at the birthday dinner. Can we talk? We walked outside. There was a bench near the parking lot. He sat first. Your mother is losing her mind. I'm sorry to hear that. Claire. What? You moved $150,000. Yes. Where? Somewhere I control. He rubbed both hands over his face. Megan checked the account because she was going to pay her rent. I went still. How much? Dad looked away. How much? $2,300. There it was. Less than one day. At dinner, Megan had cried because I was acting as though access mattered when she had not touched a cent. By Monday afternoon, she had attempted to use the account for rent. You told me she wasn't going to touch it. I said she hadn't. You knew she planned to? I knew your mother told her she could use it if she needed help. I laughed. Not loudly, just once. Dad looked ashamed. That almost made it worse. Did you know she was going to use my savings for rent before the dinner? No. Did Mom? He said nothing. Dad. I don't know. Which meant, probably, he leaned forward. Listen to me. I think this got out of hand. No, it got clear. Your mother thought if Megan had access, she wouldn't have to keep coming to everybody. I stared at him. So the solution to Megan asking everyone for money was to give her direct access to mine. When you say it like that, how else is there to say it? He shook his head. I told Elaine you would be angry. Angry? Yes. You knew I would say no. He looked at me. Yes. And you did it anyway. He lowered his eyes. That was the hardest truth of the entire story. My father was not confused. He was not manipulated. He had calculated that my anger would be easier to manage than Megan's instability. That is the curse of being reliable. People stop asking what is fair to you. They ask what you can survive. Dad reached for my arm. I moved slightly. Not dramatically. Enough. He noticed. Claire, please don't cut everybody off over this. I haven't. You know what I mean. I'm moving my money. Your mother thinks you're trying to punish Megan. I'm preventing Megan from spending my savings. She was going to pay rent, with money she did not earn. She's your sister. There it was, the final credential. Sister. As though relationship converted consent into ownership. I stood. Dad remained seated. I have to go back to work. Claire? I looked down at him. He looked genuinely frightened. Not about money, about the family arrangement changing. I love you, he said. I love you too. That made his face soften. Then I finished. But I am done being the easiest person to disappoint. I went inside. Tuesday morning, the first transfer had settled. I returned to the bank. Leonard had prepared the remaining documentation. There had been one attempted debit from the joint account, $2,300. Megan's rent. It had not completed because of the review hold placed during the account dispute. I asked for a printout showing the attempted transaction. He gave me what the bank could provide. I added it to the black folder. Then I moved the remaining balance attributable to my funds, $62,480. I left $280 in the account. Why $280? Because after reviewing early records, I could identify approximately $280 in childhood deposits that had likely come from birthday money or deposits Mom made when I was still a teenager. I was not interested in fighting over it. The life savings were mine. The ambiguity could stay. By 2:40 p.m. Tuesday, the joint access account that had held $212,480 of my money contained $280. 2 days. That is how long their new arrangement lasted. I did not close the account. I did not need to. I removed the thing that gave their access meaning. That evening, Mom came to my house. She did not knock gently. I opened the door but kept the screen door closed. You emptied it. Yes. Her face was pale with anger. You emptied the entire account. No, there's $280 left. Don't be smart with me. I'm answering you. Megan's rent bounced. The transfer was attempted. It didn't go through. She has fees now. I'm sorry. Are you? No. That answer surprised both of us. Mom gripped the strap of her purse. You humiliated your sister. I wasn't at her landlord's office. You know what I mean. She tried to spend my money less than 24 hours after telling me she had no intention of touching it. She needed rent. Then she should have asked. She knew you would say no. Yes. Mom stared at me. It was the same logic again. If they knew I would refuse, then asking became unnecessary. I opened the screen door, not to invite her in, to hand her something, the black folder. She took it automatically. What is this? Open it. Inside were copies, contribution summary, account transfer record, screenshots, her text saying I had no right to move money without discussing it. Megan's attempted $2,300 debit, and one photocopied page from the red notebook, 17 years of family help. Mom read slowly. Her expression changed around the 6th entry. I never asked you to keep this. I know. This makes us look like parasites. No, it shows where the money went. You gave most of this willingly. Yes. Then why are you throwing it in my face? I'm not asking for repayment. Then what is the point? I looked at her. The point is that you spent years calling me selfish while using me as backup. Her mouth opened. I continued before she could redirect. I helped because I loved you. I helped Megan because I loved her. I helped Dad because I loved him. But somewhere along the way, all of you decided that because I had said yes before, I had forfeited the right to say no later. That is not fair. Neither was putting Megan on my savings. It was my account, too. There it was, the technical defense. Then why did you move only my money? She went still. I stepped closer to the screen. If it was a family reserve, how much did you deposit? Silence. How much did Dad deposit? Silence. How much did Megan deposit? Her eyes hardened. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. Mom shook her head. You always reduce everything to numbers. No, numbers reduce stories to what happened. She looked down at the folder. Then she said something I did not expect. Do you know what it's like having 2 daughters and knowing one will be fine no matter what, while the other might fall apart? I did not answer immediately, because that was probably the most honest sentence she had said in years. I know exactly what it's like, I said. I've been paying for it. Her eyes filled, not performance, real grief. For the first time, I could see the fear beneath the favoritism. Megan had always seemed more fragile, so Mom cushioned every fall. I seemed strong, so they used my strength as building material. I never wanted you to feel used, she whispered. You didn't have to want it. She wiped under one eye. I was trying to protect your sister. From what? She lost her marriage, her job. Evan left. She's almost 40 and terrified. And what did you protect me from? Mom looked at me. No answer. That silence told the truth more completely than anger could. She had protected Megan from instability. She had expected me to protect myself from everything, including them. I took a breath. Money should be doing something. You've said that my whole life. She looked down. Well, now it is. Her face tightened. What is that supposed to mean? It is buying me distance from this. I closed the screen door. Mom stood there another few seconds, then left with the folder. The stronger CTA belongs here because this was the moment the story stopped being about an account balance and became about a family role. If you have ever been loved most for what you could provide, tell me in the comments what finally made you see it. And subscribe if you believe quiet justice does not require destroying people. Sometimes it only requires removing the access they confused with love. The aftermath lasted months. Megan called me 12 times the first week. I answered once. She began with anger. You made Mom cry. I'm sure. You're acting like I stole from you. You tried to withdraw $2,300. Mom told me I could. That is not better. She was on the account, and now my money isn't. You always do this. What? Make me look irresponsible. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Megan, I did not enter your rent payment. She went silent. I continued. You sat across from me Sunday and said access didn't matter because you weren't going to touch anything. By Monday, you tried to pay rent from it. I needed somewhere to live. You had severance. That's almost gone. What happened to it? That's none of your business. I let the irony sit there. She heard it. Fine, she snapped. I spent some. How much? I'm not doing this with you. Okay. She started crying. I hate talking to you. I know. You make everything sound so simple. No, I make numbers sound like numbers. She said something then that I remembered for a long time. I wish I had your life. It caught me off guard. My life? You have money, a career, no ex-husband, no debt, no one depending on you. I almost told her she had no idea what my life cost. Instead, I asked, do you know why I have savings? She laughed bitterly. Because you love working. No. Then why? Because I was scared. Silence. I had never told her that, not fully. When I was 24, I watched Mom and Dad panic every time something broke. I watched them move bills around. I watched Mom cry over taxes. I promised myself I would always have enough to leave a bad situation. Megan's breathing changed. I continued. I drove the same car for 11 years. I skipped trips. I rented with roommates until I was 33. I worked weekend inventory twice a year for extra pay. I put bonuses away. I did those things because money made me feel safe. You make good money. Now! She did not answer. The savings were never about proving I was better than you, I said. They were about making sure I did not have to beg anyone for permission to survive. Megan spoke quietly. I didn't know that. You never asked. That could have been the beginning of reconciliation. It was not. Because understanding someone for 30 seconds is not the same as changing. A week later, I learned Megan had told cousins I had drained the family emergency fund out of spite. I sent no correction. At first. Then Aunt Diane called. She sounded uncomfortable. Claire, I'm hearing 2 different versions. I assumed. I don't want to get in the middle. People say that immediately before entering the middle. But Megan says the account was created from money your mother managed for years. I closed my eyes. There it was, the rewritten history. So I made a decision. Not a family-wide email and not social media, not humiliation. I created a 1-page factual summary. No emotion, no insults. It said, the original account had remained jointly titled with Elaine because it was opened when Claire was 17. More than $198,000 of the transferred balance was currently documented as originating from Claire's earnings and personal accounts. Elaine moved $212,480 into a new joint account, adding Megan while Claire was traveling. Claire had not approved Megan's access. Megan attempted a $2,300 rent payment from the account the first business day after the family dinner. Claire moved her documented funds into accounts in her sole name. Claire was not seeking reimbursement for prior voluntary family assistance. At the bottom, I am not asking anyone to choose sides. I am asking that nobody repeat the claim that I removed money belonging to Megan or to the family. I sent it only to the 6 relatives who had contacted me directly, nothing else. The gossip stopped within a week. Proof is boring. That is why it works. Drama depends on constant feeding. Documents just sit there. Dad avoided me for almost a month. Then one Saturday morning, he appeared at my house holding the red notebook. I had left it at my parents' home years earlier. No, my current notebook was with me. What he carried was an older red ledger I had forgotten existed, the one I used from 24 to 30. "I found this in the desk," he said. I looked at it. Same red cover. My grandmother had bought me 2. Inside were entries older than my digital records. Deposits, expenses, family loans. Dad sat at my kitchen table. He turned the pages. "You paid for Megan's community college balance." I forgot about that. $2,600. She was going to be dropped from classes. "You paid Mom's car repair." "Probably." $870. I poured coffee. Dad watched me. "Why didn't you ever tell me how much?" "Because I wasn't trying to collect." He looked down. I should have stopped it. I sat across from him. "Stopped what?" "Us depending on you." The word us surprised me. Not them, us. He rubbed the notebook cover. "I thought because you had more, asking you hurt less." I said nothing. He continued. "That's the truth." I appreciated it. Not because it excused anything, because honest sentences are rare after families start defending themselves. He looked up. "When Megan was little, she had that asthma attack at camp. Remember?" I nodded. She had been 9. I had been 13. An ambulance took her to the hospital. Mom had been terrified. "She always looked fragile to your mother after that," Dad said, "even when she wasn't." I thought about it. Megan protected from punishment. Megan protected from embarrassment. Megan protected from bills. Maybe the role had started with fear and outlived the danger. "And me?" I asked. Dad smiled sadly. "You were 13 and packed everybody's overnight bag for the hospital without being asked." "Of course I had." "You were always capable." "That is not the opposite of needing protection." He nodded. "I know that now." I believed him, not completely, but enough. He reached into his jacket and put an envelope on the table. Inside was a cashier's check for $6,500. "What is this?" "Your mother and I went through some things." "For what?" "Some of what we owe you." "I'm not taking this." "Claire, I didn't ask for repayment." "I know." "Then why?" Dad looked at me. "Because I don't want the next thing I ask you for to be carrying the weight of the last 20 years. That was one of the best apologies I ever received, not because it fixed everything, because it understood something. I took the check, then put it into the new house fund. My parents had to change their own finances after that. Without me as invisible backup, the numbers became louder. They canceled a planned cruise. Dad delayed replacing his truck. Mom stopped paying Megan's entire phone bill and shifted her onto a cheaper plan. Megan moved out of the expensive townhouse 3 months later. She hated it. But she moved into a 1-bedroom apartment costing $1,380. She also found a new job. It paid slightly less than her old one. She took it anyway. For the first time since her divorce, I watched my sister make decisions based on what existed instead of what she wanted to exist. Nobody congratulated me. I did not expect them to. That was not the point. The point was what happened once rescuing stopped. Reality returned. 6 months after the account incident, I bought my house. A small craftsman with pale siding, a deep front porch, 3 bedrooms, and a backyard that sloped slightly toward a row of maple trees. Purchase price, $389,000. I put down $140,000. My mortgage payment was comfortably within my budget. After closing costs, moving expenses, and furniture, I still had enough emergency savings to sleep at night. I stood in the empty living room after closing and held the keys in my palm. For years, my family had looked at my savings and seen unused potential. I looked around that room and saw exactly what the money had been doing, waiting, giving future me options. My first night there, I ordered Thai food and ate it on the floor because my dining table had not arrived. No champagne, no family announcement, no dramatic speech, just a cardboard container, a fork, and keys beside me. I was happier than I had been in years. Mom did not visit for 4 months. Dad came after 2 weeks and helped me install shelves in the garage. That was our limited reconciliation. We did not talk about Megan every time. We did not revisit the account constantly. He learned to ask questions without carrying messages. Sometimes Mom would say something through him and he would stop himself. "She thinks..." Then he would shake his head. "No, she can tell you herself." Small change. Real change. One Sunday afternoon, while we were hanging a mirror, Dad said, "Your mother still thinks you were too harsh." I held the level against the wall. "What do you think?" He considered it. "I think we gave you no reason to be gentle." That was enough. Megan and I did not speak for almost a year. Then, unexpectedly, she called on my birthday. I recognized her number. I almost let it go. I answered, "Happy birthday." "Thank you." Silence. Then, I paid off one credit card. I smiled despite myself. That's good. $4,600. That's really good. I still have others. Okay, don't turn into a spreadsheet. I laughed. She did too. It was the first time laughter between us had not been used as a weapon in years. Then she said, "I understand the account thing now." I did not rescue her from the sentence. I waited. She continued. "I didn't then." What changed? My new job gave me a retention bonus. How much? $8,000. I smiled. And Mom called me 2 days later asking if I could help them with the deck. I laughed before I could stop myself. Megan laughed too. Then she got quiet. I got angry. I bet. I thought, why does everybody already have a plan for my money? There it was, the mirror. I told her no. How did that go? Terribly. We both laughed again. Then Megan said the sentence I had waited my entire life to hear, without knowing I was waiting. "I'm sorry, Claire." I closed my eyes. Not sorry you were upset. Not sorry things got messy. Just sorry. I really thought because you had more, it didn't cost you as much. Dad said the same thing. I guess that's where I learned it. Probably. She exhaled. "I'm not asking you to forget it." Good. She laughed softly. Still mean. Still solvent. That got a real laugh. We did not become best friends after that. I do not believe every wound needs a reunion montage, but we became more honest. When she needed something, she stopped calling Mom first to build a coalition. When I said no, she stopped treating it as a moral event. And sometimes she called without needing anything. That mattered more than I expected. Mom took longer. 2 years after the account incident, she came to my house for Thanksgiving. I had invited Dad. I had not specifically invited her. Dad asked if she could come. I said yes. Limited access, clear choice. She brought sweet potato casserole and stood in my kitchen looking around. "You did well," she said. "Thank you." She glanced toward the living room. "This is what the savings was for?" "Part of it." She nodded. For a few minutes, we prepared food side by side. Then she said, "I was wrong to add Megan." My knife stopped against the cutting board. I turned. Mom kept looking at the casserole. "I still think you could have handled some things differently." Of course, but I was wrong. I waited. She finally looked at me. I was afraid she would fall apart. "I know, and I thought you wouldn't." "I know." Mom's eyes filled. I didn't understand that expecting you never to fall apart was its own kind of cruelty. That one reached me, because it named the thing. Being the strong daughter sounds like praise, until you realize strength became the reason nobody checked how much weight they were putting on you. I did not hug her immediately. This is not that kind of story. I simply said, "Thank you for saying it." Later, while clearing plates, Mom noticed the red notebook sitting on a shelf beside my cookbooks. She touched the cover. "You still keep score?" I looked at her. She smiled faintly. This time, there was no accusation. I answered, "Only enough to know where things went." She nodded. "Your grandmother would approve." She usually does. That Thanksgiving was not healing in the cinematic sense. Nobody cried around the table. Nobody made speeches. Megan brought grocery store pie. Dad fell asleep during football. Mom complained my kitchen knives were too dull, normal. And after years of drama disguised as family closeness, normal felt luxurious. I still keep savings. More carefully now. Every account that matters is structured intentionally. Every beneficiary decision is deliberate. Every person with access is there because I chose them. But the biggest change has nothing to do with banking. I no longer keep emotional joint accounts either. I stopped allowing people to treat my patients as shared property. I stopped assuming every family crisis required my contribution. I stopped measuring love by how quickly I could rescue someone. And I stopped believing that because I could survive being used was acceptable. Sometimes people ask me whether I regret moving the money so quickly. No, I regret not cleaning up the old account years earlier. I regret every time I confused avoiding conflict with preserving peace. I regret the years I thought generosity required pretending not to notice entitlement, but I do not regret the 2 days. Because those 2 days revealed everyone. Megan had access for less than 24 hours before trying to use it. Mom defended my sister's access until I used the same account authority to protect myself. Dad discovered neutrality had always been a choice, and I discovered something I should have known much earlier. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will describe your boundaries as aggression. That does not make them aggressive. The Freedom Fund exists under another name now. I changed it after buying the house. Not because freedom stopped mattering, because I finally understood it better. I call the account Choice. Every month money goes into it. Not obsessively, not fearfully, just steadily. The balance rises and falls. I use some for travel now. Last year I spent $4,200 on a trip to Portugal. Mom nearly fainted when I told her. Megan said, "Look who finally learned money should be doing something." We both laughed. That phrase had changed too. Once it meant my money should be available to everybody. Now it means my money should serve the life I actually chose. Sometimes that means helping Dad. Sometimes it means replacing my roof. Sometimes it means leaving it untouched. Sometimes it means buying a plane ticket. Sometimes it means saying no. That is the part nobody taught me. Money does not only buy things, sometimes it buys time, distance, a locked door, a safe exit, the ability to decline, the confidence to let somebody else be disappointed. And when you have spent your whole life being the dependable one, that last thing can feel almost revolutionary. I still have the card from that birthday dinner. Not Megan's, mine. I found it inside the black folder months later. Claire Bennett, joint account. Expired now. I thought about cutting it up. Instead, I tucked it inside the red notebook, next to the page where I had written, "Family says access does not matter unless money is spent." Under that sentence, I eventually added one final line. Access mattered because they believed my no could be bypassed. That was the betrayal, not the $2,300 rent attempt, not the new account, not even the birthday ambush. The betrayal was that the people closest to me had already heard my answer. They simply decided it should not count. So when people ask what happened to the money, the answer is simple. Nothing happened to it. I did not burn it, hide it, spend it out of spite. I moved it. Out of the place where my family had quietly converted my life savings into shared permission, into a place where my consent mattered again. They put my sister on my life savings. I emptied the joint access in 2 days. And the most valuable thing I moved was not the money. It was myself. Out of the role of family, ATM. Out of the job of strongest daughter. Out of the belief that being needed was proof I was loved. Because needed and loved are not the same thing. And sometimes the people closest to you can be the greatest strangers.